Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space 17.39, a midwinter night stream. We are back.
Wow. Let's get right into it, shall we?
Congratulations!
No,
my friend.
no one could possibly know. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm just singing.
This doesn't even make sense anymore. You just have to be inside our brains to get the beginning of every episode. Or else you just
Whatever fucking bullshit thing I've DM'd to Skipper right before we started recording.
Anyway, welcome back. Let's get started. Day negative 33,602. And don't worry, viewer. I did the math. It's about 92 years ago, assuming it's the regular calendar. That which fell from the sky was not snow. There had been a meteor shower a few hours ago, and now pale ash drifted down to cover Work Complex 1. It coated the buildings and smothered the streets, the way through the false blizzard barely visible by the flickering streetlights. Among that deluge, a man walked. Unbo was a rough man who had lived a rough life. His bitter gaze always seemed 1 second away from a glare, and his hands were covered in calluses. Some of those marks had come from his work in the mines, but most were concentrated around his knuckles. These were hands that were used to throwing punches, not always against those who could fight back. Tonight, though, he was holding a bundle in those rough hands of his. His walk went on in silence. Nobody else was out tonight. Even if the ash blizzard hadn't discouraged them, the foremen had held a mass execution of contraband smugglers the night before. Nobody wanted to put themselves in a situation where they could be retrofitted into another example. He passed a massive mural that had been painted all across the wall of a brick tower, part of last year's morale-boosting initiative. The wall bore the image of a proud-looking young boy, curly-haired and broad-grinned, holding a hefty laser pick in his hands as he headed down into the mines with his laughing friends. Beneath the smiling figures, huge block words read, "The work is the nourishment. We earn the right to work." Cursing quietly to himself, Umbo glanced at the bulky script gauntlet on his arm, squinting to inspect the blurry screen. It had to be around here somewhere. After the rash of exposure a few years back, the foreman had built these places to help stem the population drain. They had already fallen into neglect and disrepair since, but tonight they were exactly what Umbo needed. There. The box-shaped building looked abandoned, and in that regard it didn't seem much different to its neighbors, but the serial code above its door was the one Umbo was looking for. Shifting the bundle, he pushed through the wall of falling ash and through the doors into the auto nursery. At least the brat wasn't awake for this. As he entered the building, Umbo was greeted by a half-hearted ding from the doorframe above him. The middle-aged woman at the reception desk looked up from her magazine at the sound. Looking at her faded gaze and missing teeth, one might be tempted to say she'd seen better days. But she lived on their moot, so that probably wasn't true. Her eyes drifted down to Umbo's bundle. "One?" she asked sharply. "You have to take the other one to another place if it's more than one. We don't do siblings here." "It's one," Umbo muttered, approaching the desk. "This is free, right? I was told it was free. I'm not fucking paying for it if it's not free." The woman snorted. "Do we look like the sort of place that makes money, lovely?" She had a point. Everything soft had long since been stripped from the chairs in the waiting room. The glass separating the desk from the rest of the room had cracks all over it. There was even a sizable hole in one of the walls, probably where someone had punched it in a fit of rage. This was not a place that people cared about. It never had been. "It yours?" The woman nodded down at Umbo's bundle. Umbo shifted his grip slightly, and the baby in his arms mewed disagreeably. He wrinkled his nose in distaste. "Didn't take much to set this little shit off." He shook his head. "Nah," he said. "It's my sister's." Right, the woman nodded, giving a sickly knowing grin. "It yours, though? Don't worry, lovely. We get all sorts." "No," Umbo repeated. "What the fuck? No! She fucked some spacer bastard and had this brat. It's keeping me awake all night, and I've got work. I'm not dealing with it. That's what this place is for, right? Dump off kids like this." "That's the idea," the woman tittered, pulling out an outdated script. She tapped a stylus against the screen. Name? My name? The baby's name. How the fuck should I know? She calls it something, I guess, but I'm fucking busy. I've got work to do. You think I stand around all day talking to a baby? Don't lose your head, the woman muttered, tapping an egg into the field. We get plenty like that, too. We'll just come up with something. Right, come on, then. Wincing with the effort, she stood up from her chair, tapping a button below the desk to let Unbo through the barrier. Wait, so does his sister know he's doing this?
Not really, no.
She's gonna come back for it, right? Beast mode, honestly. What the fuck? He followed after her into the next room, baby still in his arms, impatience visible in every breath. This was going to be his best night's sleep in ages. He wanted to get home as quickly as possible. Even with all that, though, the sight in that next room brought him to a halt. He had never seen an aquarium, but the dark room reminded him of an aquarium. The wall opposite the door was lined with glass tanks, after all. There was no water, but still. Most of the tanks were empty. Most of them. Those that weren't empty held babies. The tanks were small, around the same size as ones you'd use to hold reptiles, with just enough room for the infants to flail their limbs without hitting the sides. Each of the enclosures was equipped with 3 basic amenities: a module to deliver food, a module to deliver water, and a mechanical arm hanging from above to take care of everything else. There were flimsy toys in some of the tanks, but they seemed far from standard issue. Stuff of the future, isn't it? The woman said disinterestedly as she tapped away at a console. Auto Brain takes care of them until they're old enough for proper education. Doesn't take long to get them into the workforce after that. Efficient, isn't it? Lovely? Unbo grit his teeth. The sounds the children made were muffled through the glass, but most of them didn't sound too happy. The wailing from one of the higher boxes sent an instinctive anger spreading down the base of Unbo's neck. Too much noise. Too many waking nights. As he watched, however, there was movement in the tank. The thin metal arm reached down into the enclosure, pinched the edge of the baby's quilt, and mechanically pulled it up to cover its charge's torso. Wrong its, buddy.
Sorry.
Maybe you'll learn one day. I love you! Oh, sorry. I love you, it stated with a monotone joy. The wailing faded into an unsettled gurgling, not happy by any means, but something approaching contentment. Here we go, the woman said, tapping a final button, and one of the terrariums slid away from the wall, a hatch opening on its ceiling. Ready and waiting. What was its name again, lovely? Wrong it's again.
Okay.
You have an English degree, right?
No, I don't.
Oh.
A bit of classism, nice.
Well, I thought you did. What did you go to college for again?
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to put it in a name. I've got to put it in a name. System won't register it properly otherwise. Unbo groaned. I already told you. I don't remember. Right. The woman grunted as she took the bundle from Unbo's arms. Well, let's see. Cocking her head, she looked down at the waiting tank. It was one of the rare ones with a toy. A battered-looking plushie with an onion-shaped head. But is that where the mascot came from?
There's Puck.
It's Puck?
Yeah.
But apart from that, it couldn't exactly be called luxurious or even comfortable. The woman's eyes weren't on the inside of the tank, though. Instead, she was looking at the 3-letter identifying code on the tank's side. ZFR. Well, there you go, she chirped, lowering the child into its new glass world. We'll call it, Zephyr? Yeah, that'll do. Aetheral Space, 17.39. A Midwinter Night's Dream. Day 4. Popcorn.
Zephyr Pandershi opened his eyes. At the same time as he was waking up atop Oberon, he was working elsewhere through the complex. I'll change that to all throughout the complex.
Wow.
Weapons were being prepared. Troops were being addressed. Systems were being fortified. Each and every measure to secure the defence of Zepan was being undertaken under Zephyr Pandershi's personal supervision. And at the same time, he had been dreaming. It was a rare thing for him to dream. With his distributed consciousness, it felt more like a particularly intense daydream than anything else, but it was still an unsettling sensation to lose control of even a fraction of his faculties. He'd been mulling over a signal that could disable dreaming while preserving restful sleep. Current events meant that the project would have to be put on hold, but it was still something to consider. In the command room, he looked at the huge monitor on the wall, displaying the barbarian hordes that were surrounding Zepan. Despite the surprise of the Substantial Church's attack, they'd still been able to respond before those forces could breach the city. Zepan's defensive shield had been activated, a 33-layer, tri-sectional crimson force field that was nigh impenetrable. The Final Church forces would have no choice but to sit and wait. From here on in, then, this was a siege. And that was ideal. A siege meant time, and time was all Pandershi needed to win at this point. 9 had already begun production of the bonding agent. That would be completed in 2 days, 3 at the most. No matter who arrived outside of Zepan, they wouldn't be able to interfere with that going on within it. The ones who'd stolen permutation wouldn't remain hidden for long either. Pandershi presumed it was Blaine and her cohorts. Whoever they were definitely trapped within Zepan's shield too. It stretched out to encase the city ring as well. The search for them and their stolen prize had been delayed by the arrival of the Final Church, but soon enough the response would proceed as originally planned. Time and time and time again. If Pandershi was just a single person with a single body, time surely would have been his greatest enemy. There was only so much a single pair of hands could do in a day, after all. But that principle did not apply to Zephyr Pandershi. He was not an individual, he was a multitude. And very soon now he would be a god. Just a little more time, just a little more labour, and his life would finally be complete. He truly was a genius. Pandershi rose from his bed, paced across the room, and planted his hands against the glass slab waiting for him there. Within the glass, in the dim light that penetrated the casing, a thin structure of strands was just barely visible. Not roots, but nerves. A nervous system and brain, stripped from their vessel and preserved living for posterity. Today will be another busy day, Pandershi thought, smiling fondly. Don't you agree, Mother?
How do you find his mom? That's freaky.
I'm thinking this Pandershi guy's no good.
Yeah?
The capsule launched from the tip of Oberon early that morning. It was cylindrical, featureless and white, the repulsors built into its structure so advanced and subtle it seemed to be floating all by itself. As though lifted by an invisible hand, it ascended above Oberon, passing through the crimson barrier as if it wasn't even there. The Final Church had already started constructing fortifications around the sealed city, and as the capsule rose into the sky, every single one of their guns was trained upon it. None of them fired, though. This was permitted. It was customary for the victim of a crusade to send an envoy so that proper pleading could commence. Not a soul in the church would deny that sacred right. A black star descended to meet the vessel. With the 3 flagships of the Final Church visible high in the atmosphere above it, a dark, spider-like vessel curled its legs around the comparatively tiny cylinder as their flight paths met. The capsule was pulled into the spindly ship's docking port quickly, vanishing from sight. Not many would attend to this gathering aboard the 4th trumpet. It was more a formality than anything else. Never in the Final Church's history had a crusade been called back after declaration. The 3 apex bishops would attend remotely, while only the reprobate's envoy and 1 other would actually be there in person. The white cylinder was pulled and pushed through dark tunnels, dragged through the intestines of the ship, until finally being deposited into a cavernous meeting hall. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the door of the capsule slid open, and the envoy stepped out. His lips quirked up into a smug smirk after a brief glance around the meeting hall. Of course, the only person Zephyr Pandershi would ever send as his envoy was Zephyr Pandershi. Extension M, the body he'd dispatched for this mission, was tall and thin, with sharp cheekbones and short, side-swept white and orange hair. He'd come in full regalia for this meeting. A white three-piece suit with an orange capelet hanging over his left arm, the ensemble straddling the line between formal attire and a military uniform. Spreading his arms wide and throwing his cape to one side in the process, he had addressed the pitch-black room. "Fools of the Final Church," he called out, "I have come to accept your apologies." Funk, funk, funk. Popcorn.
One by one, with sounds like heavy footsteps, the holograms of the 3 apex bishops activated. Their visages had been blown up so that 3 giant heads loomed over Pandershi, surrounding him. Well, 2 giant heads and a swarm of huge metal shards. The Paradisus had never been keen on standard physiology. Right at the back of the room, barely illuminated by the holograms, a dark-skinned woman with blood-red eyes leaned against the wall, her arms crossed. "Zephyr Pandershi," intoned the face of Zeroth, looking down at him. "If you wish to surrender, we will now discuss terms. You must understand your hopeless situation. You have no allies anywhere in the universe, and you know that we will breach Zepan's shield before long." "You think so?" Pandershi raised an eyebrow. "I designed those shields personally, you know." "Ah, I feel like you're underestimating me. How sad!" The chorister ignored his taunt. "Our crusade is against you specifically, Pandershi. You as an individual. We have no quarrel with the people of Zepan. Give yourself up now, and you can protect your people from the ravages of war. It's not so bad a deal." Pandershi sniffed, putting a hand on his hip. "Such arrogance," he muttered, shaking his head. "You people talk as if you've already won. Don't you feel embarrassed by that level of hubris? I thought pride was meant to be a sin." "It depends on the denomination," Duke James commented placidly. "Besides, I'm not sure someone like you can give a lecture about pride." "Is that so?" Pandershi looked up at the Paradisus Apex Bishop. "I'm glad you mentioned that, actually. There's something else I believe depends on the denomination in your final church. The existence of a hell, right? Or at least the idea of some kind of afterlife where you're tormented for your sins?" "For your sake, Pandershi, I would hope such a place does not exist," the chorister said coldly. "Oh, the stories we've heard." "Ward 8, is it?" Pandershi's face twitched at those final words, but he quickly settled himself back down again, speaking with unmarred confidence. "Hell, though. Yes, I found myself interested in such an idea once I found the intruder in our system. His name was Vimsey, was it not, Apex Bishop Duke James?" The revolutions of Duke James' shards accelerated slightly, as if agitated. "Yes, I'm sure you were wondering why that gnat hasn't lowered the shields for you yet," Pandershi sneered. I'll acknowledge he tricked me with the early warning system, but I'm the sort of person you can only trick once. It was a novel kind of virus, though, I'll admit. One of you Paradisus infiltrating my systems directly as a digitized consciousness. Very good work from Vimsey. As a reward, I'm having him test out some of my personal concepts for this hell business." "Your atrocities will only make the crusade fiercer," Zeroth said simply, not even blinking at the cruelty Pandershi had revealed. "Be reasonable. Know when you are beaten." Is Vimsey him not bothering to know the triplets' names, or is this a separate guy?
This is a separate guy. This was a Paradisus. When they said they introduced the virus was a guy, basically.
Nice. "Beaten?" Pandershi laughed, turning on his heel to face the visage of the humorless Apex Bishop. "Beaten? Beaten how? Beaten when? Nothing has changed. My apotheosis remains as close to hand as ever. This is a siege, my friends. Do you think there's enough time left in the universe to starve me out? By coming here, all you've accomplished is giving yourself front row seats to the next era of humanity. How about this, though? How about you listen to my proposal very quickly now?" "Oh?" The chorister raised his eyebrows. Pandoshi's lips spread into a wide and sickly grin. His eyes narrowed to amber lines of ecstasy. "Be reasonable," he gloated. "Know when you are beaten. Instead of your primitive sky god, why not worship me? Your pathetic notion of why will never answer your prayers, whereas I am a being who can be seen and spoken with. What more could mindless followers like you?" Pandershi's head went flying off. The cut was clean, surgical, so much so that it took several seconds before blood sprayed from the stump of Pandershi's neck. His body crumpled to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. Pandershi's lips were still moving silently by the time his head hit the ground with a wet thump. Only then did he seem to realize what had happened. His eyes widened into outrage. This was the work of the woman who'd been lurking at the back of the room. In an instant, she'd crossed the entire chamber and sliced Pandershi's head off with one smooth motion. Now she stood over his head, looking down at it with dismissive red eyes. White hair flowed down her head, tied into many braids, and even restrained like that, they were long enough to reach her back. It was no surprise that she'd been difficult to see in this room. The combat suit she wore was pitch black, as was the small meter secured to her head. What's a meter, M-I-T-R-E?
It's like a bishop hat.
Oh. "This is death," she said to the man she decapitated, her voice quiet and husky. I don't know what a husky voice is, if you could describe.
Well, I can't do one.
I'll look it up later. I'm just going to give her a stoic one. "Acquaint yourself. You will experience it many more times in the days to come." Jabrahar's witness, divine accuser of the Crusade office, sheathed her blade. As a tri-sect crusade was an endeavor embarked upon by all three member sects of the final church, its leadership could not be entrusted to a single representative from one of the sects, nor could command be muddled by a joint command. It was for that reason that the Crusade office was established. Existing outside of the standard organizational structure of the final church, it took military command once a crusade was declared, doing everything it took to ensure a swift and unambiguous victory. There were names respected throughout all three sects of the final church. Wotan, Elizabeth Crowley, Sebastian Wildwood. You don't know.
No?
Tanoni. Sebastian... Oh, actually, you know what? Never mind. Let's keep it. Sebastian Wildwood and Jabrahar's a witness.
Well, these are not all necessarily current people, anyway.
Oh. Originating from the humanist sect, she had roamed the galaxy in search of unique forms of strength, returning to the church as one of their military powerhouses. The current divine accuser had certainly achieved her share of accolades. She'd been dispatched against entire rogue cults as a single operative, emerging victorious each time. She'd been chosen as a donor for the project that had produced the last Superbian Apex Bishop. When she'd briefly gone missing in action after a secret joint operation with the Supremacy and UAP many years ago, there had even been serious consideration towards canonizing her as the Church's Saint of War. Ho 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 ho. That's pretty cool. "I will assume command henceforth," Witness said bluntly, her crimson gaze dull as she secured her horizontally sheathed sword. "Exunt omnes." Did I pronounce that right?
Exunt omnis.
"Exunt omnes. Objections?" "None," replied Zeroth. Without another word, the three holograms vanished, leaving Witness and the corpse alone in the chamber. The apex bishops of the final church knew that they could leave the theater of war to no finer playwright. Tracking Pandershi's blood behind her, she began her exit from the chamber, towards the bridge of the fourth trumpet, from where the siege of Zepan would be coordinated. Zephyr Pandershi had boasted that they wouldn't be able to breach his precious city. That kind of overconfidence was a weakness of the soul. When Jabrahar's witness saw such a weakness, she wanted nothing more than to stab her sword into it. If she understood Zephyr Pandershi's nature correctly, she would get many such chances this campaign. Pursuit of perfection. Principality. A crimson ring-shaped halo sparked into life above Witness's head as she stepped onto the bridge. Crimson... Which tier is crimson?
It's sort of like a standard tier.
Oh. She didn't flinch, nor did the black-armored troops.
But this is a unique sort of case anyway, but so the colour doesn't really apply in this one.
Oh. Her personal Varangians that saluted her as she passed. What's a Varangian?
Those are her personal troops.
Nice. A command center with a huge hologram of Zepan in the surrounding area had been set up ready for her, but she didn't even glance at it yet. In fact, her eyes were closed, as her mind sifted through the history of wars long past. The humanists were forbidden from creating anything new in this overstuffed world. While Jabrahar's witness no longer belonged to that sect exclusively, that tenet was still one she held close to her heart. Every scrap of strength she'd gathered in her 56 years of life was one that had originally been cultivated by others. And as for this city, every victory in this world had already been achieved. All she had to do was choose the right one to reenact. This place would be broken like an egg, and the poisonous yolk would be pulled free and incinerated. Such was the will of Y. Is she gonna do the fucking Draenel breaches again? Because that's kind of what that sounds like a little bit. I don't know.
It's a crusade, bro. It's lit.
It's like, come to the crusade, we'll fucking crack your planet open. Scary. Dude, I gotta get out of the Trisect Crusade. People are cracking planets open left and right. I'm still
I gotta get a Zepan now. What do you mean the shields are up?
As she watched her Seelie Rangers assemble in Oberon's main hall for the address, Zephyr Pandershi couldn't help but scoff. What a gathering of fools the final church had become. Pandershi had hoped the Superbians, at least, would have appreciated her genius, but the institution had truly fallen far since the days she, Jester Morn, and Horatio Brinkman had collaborated in those hollowed halls. Whatever. If people didn't want to take her hand, she had no problem dropping them. She threw her cape out as she stepped up to the pulpit, looking out at her regiments of Seelie Rangers. Just like Extension M, Extension S's uniform leaned more towards a military aesthetic than Pandershi's usual preference. Along with the white flowing cape, the military cap on Pandershi's head truly gave off the impression of a commander. "My people!" she called out, her shrill voice echoing throughout the massive ceremony hall. "My soldiers! My Seelie Rangers! Today, Zepan calls for your aid! Do you answer?" "We answer!" The words were a chorus, belted out with the kind of uniformity that sent a chill of satisfaction down one's spine. What better army could one ask for than this? What better people could one cultivate than this? Zepan was the chosen place. People used to say that the Shishinaga was the very center of the universe, but that ship was rubble, while all the forces in the galaxy were flowing towards Nermut. The true focal point of humanity was becoming clearer by the hour. Their species was finally reaching its conclusion. "We are surrounded, my friends," Pandershi said gravely, leaning over the pulpit. "For decades we have watched the world and seen the depravity that devoured it, and now that same depravity is on our doorstep. It wishes to break through our walls. It wishes to slither into our homes. It wishes to molest our souls." She slammed her hands against a stone, and her next words were nearly a scream. "Will we grant it passage?" Her Seelie Rangers answered perfectly. "No!" Thump. "No!" Thump. "No!" Thump. The roar of the crowd was so loud, accompanied by their stomping boots, that for anyone else it would have been almost painful to hear. But to Zephyr Pandershi, these sounds were the most glorious orchestra in existence. A wide grin spread across her face, her cheeks flushing pink. "What does Zepan offer you?" Pandershi cried, leaning so far forward now that she was nearly climbing over her pulpit. "And what do you give in return?" Thump. "Love." Thump. "Love." Thump. "Love." Nicholas Quick's hands shook as he considered its disgrace. This was absolutely unacceptable, what he was doing now. The Seelie Rangers were being addressed by the director himself, and where was their vice commander? Skulking in the shadows. Colluding. Not scheming exactly, but certainly putting his eyes where they didn't belong. The director had told him, after all, hadn't he? Other avenues of thought should be left to those better equipped to explore them. And this avenue of thought, there was nothing good within it. Why was Nicholas even entertaining the notion? The words of that Atoy Muzazi and the story that girl Hazley had told, they were nothing more than outsider lies, designed to mislead and confuse. And yet, here Nicholas Quicks was. The archives were spread out before him, a gargantuan, cylindrical chamber that would more accurately be described as a bottomless pit. A single walkway stretched out from the entrance, hanging over the abyss, the blue lights running over the railings to provide some slight illumination. The walkway extended for many meters before branching out into a ring around the chamber's centerpiece. The Pandershi Drive itself. Hang on, sorry.
No problem.
The spherical module was at least 10 meters in diameter, floating and slowly turning in place like a miniature planet. Although the Pandershi Drive remained aloft through the use of repulsors, it was connected to the access stations around the circular walkway by thick signal cables, almost giving off the impression of a hot air balloon as a result. Every byte of information that had been recorded by Zepan's systems ended up here, stored for safekeeping in the most advanced storage device the galaxy had to offer. Usually, access to the Pandershi Drive would be restricted to the director himself and those he gave access to. But today, Nicholas Quicks was here to take a look. He swallowed, looking down at the access key in his hand. This hadn't been easy to acquire. He'd had to promise that hairy phantasm a favor in the future, and who knows what kind of scandalous request that rapscallion would make. Even so, it had to be done. Nicholas Quick's heart would accept nothing less. "It's not that I doubt," he told himself. "It's just that I want to clear his name." He took a step forward, into the darkness and the light. Popcorn.
Nyan hummed happily to himself as he continued his work. The workspace he'd been given by Zephyr was as sterile as the director had promised, featureless, empty, and white. If not for the slight curvature of the walls, it would look like Nyan was standing in an infinite white void, slowly weaving together something black in his hands. To tell the truth, Nine was certain he could have done this even in the filthiest back alley, but he supposed that Zephyr was worried about contamination. I'm sure you'd agree they're a source of contamination far more dangerous than germs to worry about, but oh well. Soon, well, relatively soon, the dark mass congealing in Nine's hands, being assembled atom by atom, would become something like the bonding agent that Pandershi had requested. A substance that would transmit the necessary instructions throughout the Panacea network, imparting will upon that without will. Even the inert Panacea throughout the galaxy would reactivate and respond. If not anything else, it would certainly be a show to see, no matter where in the audience you were. 2 days, maybe 3, and it would be completed. Until it was done, Nyan would be able to move from the spot or allow his concentration to waver. Even with a Haramazda, producing a hypothetical substance this intricate and specific would be quite a feat. Nyan didn't doubt for a second he'd be able to...
Wasn't it Ahura, like A-H-U-R-A, or am I...
You're absolutely right. You got a Dragon coin. You can after the story end, you can spend these in the shop for new game plus.
I get the extra CGs.
Yeah. Nyan didn't doubt for a second he'd be able to accomplish it, but until he was done, he was a piece taken off the game board. Things were certainly getting exciting upstairs. To tell the truth, Nyan was a little sad that he was going to miss so much of it. But sometimes that was just how things went. Behind him, the door to the chamber opened. Nyan didn't turn to look. He didn't want to lose focus, after all. "You're the one who tipped off the final church, aren't you?" he called out. It said nothing. Nyan said, "You don't have to worry. I'm no tattletale. To be honest, if you hadn't already set things up like this, I probably would have done it myself. This is a really great scenario for me. I'm grateful, you know?" It said nothing. "Oh," Nyan frowned. "Are you feeling bad about it? I bet you don't look too happy right about now. Actually, I guess that's not really possible for you, is it? Still, you shouldn't feel glum. You decided this was something necessary, didn't you? You should stand by that decision." It said nothing. "If you're thinking about killing me," Naya went on casually, "I'll tell you right now that it isn't possible for you. If you shoot me in the back with that, you'll just get yourself destroyed. I'll have to start over, sure, but that's buying a few hours tops. There are smarter moves you can make here. That's what you guys are supposed to be all about, right? Intelligence?" It said nothing. Slowly, the doors slid shut. "Peace at last," Nine finished, smiling softly. "Peace at last."
Was that Jin? Or GID, maybe?
Popcorn.
Or a princeling? In a chamber dyed crimson by blood and light, Oe Matispator dropped to one knee. How do I pronounce that?
Matispator?
Oe Matispator dropped to one knee. "Lord Director," she said respectfully, looking down at the floor, "I await your command." This room, located at the very bottom of Oberon, miles and miles underground, was dedicated to one thing and one thing only: the preservation of Zephyr Pandershi. The ceiling, the walls, the floor, all of it was packed with life support modules, the countless machines forming a bizarre ecosystem of metal and plastic. There were machines to cleanse blood of mold, machines to keep skin solid, machines to replenish cerebrospinal fluid, and those were only the first of many. This was a dark palace, designed to sustain life, and even then it was only barely succeeding. Zephyr Pandershi had 26 extensions his consciousness piloted, A to Z, and through them he managed their mood and lived his life. But he still had one original body. If it had to be given a name, then perhaps extension I would be appropriate. It was a body cursed with omnipresent death, and it was Zephyr Pandershi's greatest shame. Ooh. "Did you look at me, Oe?" the director hissed from within his tank, speakers amplifying and transmitting his ravaged, hoarse voice. "Don't look. Ugly. Ugly." I thought he'd done plastic surgeries on himself, but there's always been an original body?
Yeah.
Does he do them on the extensions?
Yeah.
"Of course not, Lord Director," Oe said, still facing the floor.
Well, some people who are like, "Oh, he just does the surgeries on himself," they're perhaps operating on outdated information, because people didn't know there were all the bodies until, like, recently.
That's true. "I would never look. Her words were not false. Oe had not looked. Zephyr Pandershi was the man who had rescued and raised her. If he gave her a simple request such as averting her gaze, she would not hesitate to obey it. But she didn't know. She didn't know the shape of the thing she would not look at. At this point, little of Zephyr Pandershi remained save for his upper torso and one arm, connected to life support by winding black tubes. His legs and right arm had finally atrophied and crumbled away over the last few years. Even now, that deterioration was still ongoing. Flakes of skin drifting off into the red liquid his body was suspended in. But he's younger than Cadman! He's basically still a kid. He's only 92.
He's just a fucking kid, dude.
Yeah, in the eyes of Aetheral Space, it's nothing.
Yeah.
His eyes were gone, leaving black pits. His bones were visible through the gaps in his flesh. His senses had all failed him, replaced with cybernetic substitutes. Still, as far as Oe was concerned, this was a triumph. This body should have succumbed to its malady long ago, and yet here it was. It clung to life still, with all of Zephyr Pandershi's ingenuity. Even so, anyone looking at this body right now would surely think it was a corpse. Extension AE's labored breathing filled the blood-red chamber. Oe, oh dear Oe, we are in a dangerous situation. The final church is at the gates. Soon enough, the supremacy in the UAP will arrive too. With so much chaos brewing outside, there is always the risk of the unexpected. This beloved city of ours may soon become a battlefield. We must prepare for that eventuality. Yes, sir. Oe bowed her head deeper. Before all the actors assemble, we must have permutation back in our hands. The body of Dragon Hadrian is the key to our victory, Pandershi hissed. Based on the time of Dragona Hadrian's exit and the escape routes available to her, her group is most likely based in the city ring. Go, Oe, and bring home our sword of possibilities. As you command. Oe rose to her feet, eyes still closed, and turned on her heel towards the exit. From her back she pulled the relic of Monadere, the battle-axe black brush, and held it ready. The old Aether armament was unsettling in her hands, but for the sake of her home she would swing it however many times it took. Oh, and Oe? Oe did not turn. Oe did not look. The time for restraint is past. Spare no effort. Today, take everything with you. As the doors out of the chamber opened, Oe finally opened her eyes. She still didn't dare look back at Pandershi's true form, at the man in the tank, but her gaze was hardened with resolve. Her grip tightened on Blackbrush's hilt.
He's back in the tank.
No matter what he... Damn.
Let's go fucked.
No matter what he looked like, this was the man who had saved her from a living hell. This was the man who had raised her since she was a child. This was the man who had fed and clothed and taught her. Failing him was never even an option. Yes, Lord Director, she said. I love you, she thought. Wow, scary.
Scary.
What are they up to? What's everything? Would you take it with you? Everything?
Well, I think it means literally like every fucking kill these people.
Damn. All right. Well, let's get some Aether questions and then wrap this thing up.
It's like if imagine Kalos Brack like Mizozi shows up with Cadman the Contenders, fucking the App Master. Alexis is just like Skipper, stand down.
Avengers assemble. What would you do?
I would fucking die.
Oh, Tan?
Yeah. Oh, for fuck's sake!
I lost him. What happened? Hold on, let me try my headset, see if that's the issue.
Hello.
Tan?
Am I here? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're back.
That's
you disappeared
yeah.
from this world. That was scary. Sugarcane Soldier asks, if the final church has gone on the crusade before, what is the most historically significant crusade it has gone on? What were the consequences of it for the church and the rest of the galaxy?
This will be answered in the story itself, so I can't answer that right now.
Lan asks, in terms of... oh my god, your background fan is so loud, Honey.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Lan asks, oh my god, I can't think. When did it get so loud? Is it your headset mic?
Am I on the headset? I might be on the headset, right? But it's not on the...
Is it still recording on Audacity?
How about now? Is this better?
The background noise is gone, but this is the shitty mic. You were on the right mic before. It's just too close to the fan.
Is this better?
Yes, it's just too close to the fan.
There's no fan, so...
Oh.
Hello?
Alright, I'll just try and not think about it. Glenn asks, in terms of Pisces paint, what's the difference between an impossible color and a color that we can't see because the frequency's out of range?
Well, for a colour that humans can't see, it's just because you can't, see it, but an impossible colour is, more fundamentally, a colour that cannot happen, but that she forces into existence anyway, so your brain just sort of breaks a little bit when you see it.
Damn. That's fucking...
It's like a colour that we can't see is like a colour that humans cannot see. An impossible colour is a colour that nobody could see.
It's like when you try to imagine a color that doesn't exist, and you can't because it's just an existing
Yeah,
color.
because obviously, yeah.
But you push it to come up with that, and it's like, I wasn't supposed to be...
It's like, here's what you have. It's like, this is what you wanted.
No. Rurum asks, are Aether batteries able to allow a non-Aether user to use an Aether armament? If so, are Aether batteries more commonly used by Aether users to expand their pool of energy, or by non-Aether users who want to use armaments?
No, because an Aether battery basically is... you use that in conjunction with your own Aether to expand your capacity, basically.
Correct.
So, that's why, Gretchen's final fusion tools that she wanted to, have work for non-Aether users, that's why that was such a big deal. That was, it would have been a game changer if she stuck to it.
Yeah. Lan asks, is Dragon the first Supreme to be kidnapped?
No.
Oh. Rurum asks, what are the planets in the same solar system as Azumha like?
Most of them are blasted ruins, but they were blasted ruins back in the day too. So these are... There were no... either... the Gene Tyrants didn't really have that information, but presumably those are remnants of the conflict that led to them coming into existence.
Damn. Alright, I think we'll end it there for now, but hey, thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a comment on wherever the hell you're listening to this to. It would really help out. We'll be ever so grateful.
Bye!
Bye!